Hello everyone, welcome to our Truth Be Told YouTube channel, with your host Rick Howard and Mike Maney.
Hello everyone. Do you notice how this is our session number 95, and we might look 95 years old, but this is session 95.
Yes, yeah. Don't confuse the two, please.
But has anyone noticed or paid attention or even care that over these 95 sessions that has covered, 3-4 years? We started in COVID year, didn't we? 2020.
Yes.
So several years. Has anyone paid attention? Maybe we should do one video taking all the sessions, bits of all the sessions of our introduction and just splice them together to see how much grayer your hair is and how
Yeah.
less hair I have.
You're right. That would be an interesting stat, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be humiliating, embarrassing. Anyway, welcome everyone to Truth Be Told, which is our goal, not our claim.
Yes.
And today is session 95. It's May the 15th, 2024. So we are one day past, what would it be? The 76th anniversary or birthday of the official recognition of Israel as a nation, May 14th, 1948. And just like what happened then is what happened yesterday over in that area. The neighbors, their enemies surrounding them, the Palestinians of Hezbollah and Gaza, the Hamas, they also celebrated Israel's anniversary by firing lots and lots of rockets into Israel. So it was not fireworks, folks. That was missiles intending to do damage and death. So, and we have college campuses canceling their graduation services because of fear of the protesters disrupting it, shutting it down and things. So the protesters have basically won, and the weaselly leaders of the universities are giving into it.
Yeah.
And so these Palestinians are daily trying to kill Israelis, and these protesters are siding with the Palestinians. You look at a lot of these protests, and at least some of them, the majority seems to be young women. And you think, what would the Palestinians, what would Hamas, what would they do to you if they captured you? Would they say, we're so thankful you protested that we're just going to, honor you? No, they would be brutalized in such terrible ways. And yet these people are, making these statements like Palestine shall be free from the river to the sea, which can only mean either the complete removal or the complete annihilation of Israel. And so they claim Israel is practicing genocide, but that is what they're proposing with that slogan of not just genocide of a percentage, but genocide of the whole.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the rise of anti-Semitism is really startling. And of course, our own administration is in the process of betraying Israel, stabbing them in the back. They deny this, but it seems very obvious. You look at the quotes of some of the Muslim leaders in our country, and they basically have told the current administration, you either back off from your total support of Israel in their war against us, or we are going to stay home on election day. And if we stay home, we have enough votes in states like Michigan and Minnesota and Wisconsin, the upper Midwest especially, and other states, that you will lose those battleground states and you will lose the election.
Mm-hmm.
So for the sake of a few thousand votes
Mm-hmm.
to win a few close states for the election,
Mm-hmm.
this administration is betraying Israel,
Yeah.
our most trusted, closest ally
Yeah.
in that part of the world or in any part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not claiming that Israel has done everything right, and we're not claiming that Israel is, they're holy before they're going to be made holy, in the
Right.
sense that they are elect before they
Mm-hmm.
are actually regenerated. So they are still in their unbelief. They're in rebellion against God. They're
Mm-hmm.
a very secular nation, very ungodly in so many ways. So we're not saying they're so great spiritually, but God still has a plan for them, and God wants us to support them against what is obviously a rival, false, idolatrous religion of Islam that surrounds them.
Mm-hmm.
And yet so many in our country wants to support the rival to Christianity and Judaism. And that rival religion, one of the reasons why they hate us so much is because they believe our belief in the Trinity is polytheism,
Mm-hmm.
and they are monotheistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so they believe that they have the right to persecute and kill those who they think believe in many gods.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't believe in many gods. We believe
Right.
in one God manifest in three persons.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the root of their hatred of Christianity. And of course, our claim that we go back through Israel, through the Jewish religion, and back to Abraham, and that we are Abraham's seed.
Mm-hmm.
So they hate that because they claim that right to Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And so they hate both religions that trace their roots back to Abraham because they think we are usurping their rightful place to that.
Yeah.
And so the further our country has gotten away from our Judeo-Christian roots, the more we have seen support of the Palestinian Muslim, anti-America, anti-Christian, anti-Jewish Islam religion. And it's just amazing that this administration, from October the 5th, now here it is just in May, have almost done a U-turn. Now they're trying to backpedal some because they've met a lot of pushback the last couple of weeks. But just in 6 months or so, we've seen how quickly prophecy, and that's where we're headed with this little discussion, is that a lot of times people say, well, the prophecies can't really be in our day because it takes a long time for those prophecies to come to pass, and they can't happen, too quickly. But we're already seeing the answer to the question many people have of where is America in the end times? What will America do during the last 7 years? Will they be a supporter of Israel? Will we be part of all nations gathered against Jerusalem? And we are officially in the process of heading toward that, either anti or at the very best neutral, trying to play both ends against the middle in the Middle East. And so we don't know how it's all going to work out during the last 7 years, but it may be a situation where America kind of sits on the sidelines or does not directly intervene. There are some passages like in Daniel 11, the ships of Kittim, which is probably naval forces in the Mediterranean at some point delay or stop the Antichrist from some of his plans. But it just seems like America is trying to play both sides as best they can. And I understand some political reasons for it, but you and I try to look at it from a Bible standpoint, and we see how dangerous it might be for us.
Yes, absolutely. And back to the you said the young women and others, the college campuses, the phrase useful idiots comes to my mind, because you're right. The homosexuals and all these people who are jumping on board pro-Palestinian, they would be the first to go.
They would be wiped out, wouldn't they?
Wiped out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even the professors,
Yes.
because in any system of socialism, communism, even Islam, that kind of ideology, you have to get rid of creative people, intellectuals, those who might be able to form arguments against you or protests against you. You have to get rid of them. And because usually, just like it is with Islam, socialism, and communism today, it's a small handful of wealthy, elite, powerful people who control the masses. And that's what scares me a lot in America today, because another thing that's happening is it's obvious those in charge, either in industry or politics or education, are attempting to either wipe out, or at least neuter in some way the powerful middle class, because it's the powerful middle class that sees the value of freedom, entrepreneurship, capitalism, freedom of speech and religion, that stands in the way of government takeover completely.
Yes.
And so if you can somehow eliminate, either politically or financially, the middle class, which is where most of the conservative element politically in our country resides, then you're going to have a small group of wealthy elite control a large group of basically lower middle or lower class financially people. And that's what they want.
Exactly.
And so the large middle class stands in the way. And it's in the process of happening right now. Inflation is going wild, and the government's trying to take more of our money and provide less freedoms, more penalties, more lawsuits, all that kind of thing. And no matter what people think of Donald Trump, just the very idea of purposely using the court system to eliminate your political rival. I mean, that's the thing of banana republics. I mean, that's the thing of dictatorships.
Yep.
And so that's a lot of what's behind all this right now, is defeat him in the courts because we're afraid we cannot defeat him at the polls.
Yes.
So there's just a spiritual wickedness in high places, Ephesians 6:12 right now.
Yeah.
And we're trying to feed our people as best we can from the what would we say, the solid food and the refreshing fountain of the word of life in the Bible. Give them an alternative to the rancid food and polluted water of politics.
Yes.
Anyway, that's my little political rant for Braden Barnum. Hope you appreciated that, Braden.
We love you, brother Braden. We love you.
So we've been going through Deuteronomy. We've been kind of working our way through several chapters a week, trying to bring out some points, because as to remind you, we look at Deuteronomy as kind of an Old Testament book that would fit nicely in the New Testament. And it's such a spiritual book and such an uplifting. A lot of the terminology of Deuteronomy is brought directly into the New Testament regarding the New Testament church. And we're going to see that quite a bit today. here in chapter 12, this is a favorite of Landmark Baptist and a favorite of those who clearly see the central place the Lord has given his New Testament church in the spreading of his word to the nations and the preparation of a people for himself to be prepared for a bride for Christ. And this chapter 12 is a favorite of ours because it speaks about not just a special people, a chosen people, a prescribed people, but a chosen place.
Yes.
Chosen place.
Yes.
And so you get into like verse 4 of chapter 12. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things, but you shall seek the place where the Lord your God chooses out of all your tribes to put his name for his habitation, and there you shall go. Now, they'd already built the tabernacle by this point. This is at the end of the 40 years. So they would think of the tabernacle in language like this. They did not yet have the concept of a permanent temple that was hundreds of years later. But it's the same thing. And he has a chosen city for eventually that to be, which became Jerusalem, because that's the city of the great King Melchizedek, the great type of Christ. And David, another great type of Christ, conquered that city and made it his capital and wanted to build a temple there. And so this constantly smaller circles of a nation of the 12 tribes. And then he speaks here of a particular tribe, which we know was Judah, and then a particular place within that particular tribe, which became Jerusalem, and then a particular place within that particular city, which was the temple. So these, what do you call it? Smaller and smaller circles. There's a term for it. It's escaping me right now. That is getting down to a particular place where the sacrifices and the service is supposed to take place. So you have all these I have in my Bible words such as there, in verse 5, then verse 6, there you shall take your burnt offerings. Verse 7, there you shall eat before the Lord. Verse 11, there will be the place where the Lord your God chooses to make his name abide. There you shall bring all that I command you. Verse 13, take heed to yourself that you do not offer your burnt offerings in every place that you see, but in the place which the Lord your God chooses in one of your tribes, there you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do all that I command you. So, this on and on and on, the place, there. There's no escaping the emphasis God is placing on this idea of a people, a land, a place. And so it gets back to a subject we've talked about in previous sessions, where the construction, the framework, the design that God chose for Israel to operate by carries this idea that still remains today. Number one, the primacy of the individual. So an individual Israelite had the responsibility, if they sinned, to offer a sin or trespass offering, different offerings, to go and confess, go to the temple. So no matter what else the nation was doing, you had a personal responsibility before God. So so that's one reason why we have that great little book, the book of Ruth, because that took place in the time of the judges, where every man did what was right in their own eyes. And if that's all you had, the book of Judges, you would think everything is gone to pot, in the whole country. But one purpose of the book of Ruth is to show, no, there's Boaz, and then there's Naomi, and then there's Ruth brought into it, and the bloodline of Christ from that to David and then to Christ. And so Boaz is a great example of, no matter how bad off spiritually the nation was, as an individual, he recognized his own personal responsibility.
Yes.
So it goes all the way back to a question I asked sessions ago. Why did God choose to create one man in the beginning, Adam, one person? He could have created Eve at the same time. He could have created their children at the same time. He could have created several men and women so that they'd get a jump start on replenishing, populating the earth. But he started with just one. And I think that one reason for that is to show the primacy of the individual, that no matter what happens to the corporate, to the group, to the family, to the church, to the nation, it does not excuse the individual from their responsibility before God. So within the nation of Israel, he designed that primacy of the individual. And then he, and when we get to chapter 16, he reviews the holy feast days of the year. But in Leviticus 23, before he goes into detail on all those, he makes sure he talks about the weekly Sabbath. So the weekly Sabbath is not just about the individual, it's about the family. So the individual becomes part of a smaller corporate group called the family. And part of the purpose of the weekly Sabbath was for the family to be together. A time of rest, a time of reflection, a time of talking about the Word of God, a time of meditation, a time of rest, a time of, and one purpose for that was to solidify the unity of that particular family. And so that's, like the original Passover, a lamb for each house. And so this building idea, the primacy of the individual, and then the family, and then the annual feasts in the spring, summer, and fall, where let me see, where does it say that in chapter 12, verse 13 through 15, I think is where it is. No, that's not the one I was looking for. It's in 16, verse 16 and 17. 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place. There's that place again, which he chooses at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, at the Feast of Weeks, at the Feast of Tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God, which he has given you. So at least 3 times a year, they were to come together in Jerusalem, eventually, after David conquered it and the temple was built. But this idea of the larger corporate, the nation, and your responsibility as part of that, and the nation to be united in their service to God as one man. Mm-hmm. So this building idea of the individual and then the family and the weekly Sabbath and then the nation on the annual feast, where God is instilling the same thing that is still true today in the church. The individual, the family, because the family is still the institution designed by God to operate your service to God in, to your wife and to your children, if you're a man. And then the family is to then operate within a church in their service to God. So again, this expanding idea, individual, family, and then larger corporate unit, that families meet together in a church setting. So it's beautiful how God designed Israel and the church this way, so that there's always a backup. There's always a backup. Like if you're having a struggle in your personal life, you have a family that can help you. If your family's having a struggle, you have a church. And so it's designed to give you like several lines of defense against evil and against temptation and against spiritual struggles you have in your life. And then, but it's not just a line of defense. The reverse of that is you are then to contribute to each one for their health. So it's not just a receiving framework that God designed. It is a giving framework. So the individual, as they are building up their own faith and spiritual life in their daily devotion and Bible readings and studies and prayer life and even church attendance and helping their families and all that, as your personal life is being built up, then you have something to contribute to your family.
Yes.
And then as your family is growing in spiritual health, they have something to contribute to the church. So it's a beautiful system of giving and receiving, both. And the Bible teaches this all the way through. Constantly look for opportunities to give, but as you're giving, you're making the family, and in our case, the church, better, so that the church and the family then is better able to help you as an individual when you're in a time of need. It's just wonderful how God designed that.
It is. You're right. When you are in the position of needing, and you line of defense, like you said, and so you have to receive. So there's a moment where you now are on the receiving end. You're expecting your brethren who've been fortifying their own faith to be strong for you to receive from them. And so they have to be busy strengthening themselves in the positive while you're going through your thing in the negative. Okay. And then when you're strong, they'll rely upon you in their negative moments to be that strong person. So you're right. We have to we're constantly feeding, giving and taking. I like it. I like the way you framed that. It's quite the system.
Well, actually, the Bible teaches the more you give, the more you receive. Because the more you give, you're making better that which you're giving to, which makes them better able to give to you when you need help.
Yes, absolutely.
And that 1 Corinthians 12 goes into that in great detail.
Yeah.
That each in Ephesians 4 and Colossians have those wonderful verses about each part of the body does its share for the growth of the body in love, so that the growth of the body then makes each individual better off. And so every member of a church, every member of a family should constantly be thinking of, what can I do to contribute to my family and church that will help them become better as the Lord directs me? Well, the one thing I can do is to make sure my own personal spiritual life is healthy. So, there's a kind of, it's not selfishness or self-centeredness. There's a holy way of looking at this, because some people say, well, you're being selfish or self-centered. Like, for instance, I try to go to the gym 2 or 3 days a week and exercise, take these group classes, burn off some calories. And, there have been times where I've been at the gym and I say to myself, would I be spending my time better at home studying the Bible? But if I'm using that time properly, it's actually contributing to my mental, physical health, to where I'm better able to use the time of my study to be able to concentrate better and to appreciate it better because, I'm taking care of my health to a certain extent to where my health doesn't become a great hindrance. So this is, this gets back to our wonderful mentor friend, Brother K.D. Ward, who used to lecture about this all the time. Take care of your personal health.
Yeah.
Because how often has the Lord invested 20, 30, 40 years into someone's ministry, helping them gain knowledge, helping them to reach a certain age of respect. They have a good track record that people listen to them and can benefit from them. But because they haven't taken care of their health, then, they get to 50, 60, 70 years old. And instead of still being in good shape mentally and physically to offer something of value, they're struggling with health problems.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it greatly hinders their ability to minister to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has helped me through the years to not feel guilty if I'm out taking a hike for exercise or swimming with my grandkids, or I'm going to the gym, because it should all work toward being a more useful vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And we are body, soul, and mind.
Yeah.
And so we need to take care of all of those parts of our trinity, of our makeup, so that one doesn't hinder the other. And so I've kind of adopted that as my lifelong, and you've already hit 70. I'm going to hit 70 in October. But I think relatively speaking, we're in pretty good shape for our age.
Yeah.
And we're able to do these sessions. We're able to devote, hours into study and ministry and so forth without becoming completely exhausted. Mm-hmm. We're not fighting major health problems, and we have aches and pains and nagging stuff. We're dealing with it. Age eventually catches up to you, no matter what you do.
Yes.
But we're trying to delay it, and we're trying to, be useful to the Lord as long as He allows us to live. And, even in the ministry, I've seen, it's sad to see where men I've respected, who wonderful pastors and preachers and teachers, and we'll learn a lot from them. But you see when they hit about our age, 70, you can tell they've kind of quit studying. They quit really pushing themselves in the Word of God. Mm-hmm. They're telling the same stories, the same jokes, the same favorite scriptures. Mm-hmm. They're kind of just trying to freelance it almost.
Yeah.
And it really shows.
Yeah.
It's a sad thing to see.
Yeah.
And I think you're like I am, that, I give the Lord credit for this. I don't take any credit for it, but I still look forward every day to coming into my study and studying and preparing sermons and lessons and subjects to send out to my mailing list, and do these videos, the end time sessions on Tuesday nights. And so far it's someone asked a week or so ago, my wife told him, says, she told him how many hours a day I'm usually in my study, and how often I try to come in here and try to do some study work. And the person said, wow, that's a lot. They kind of mentioned it to me because, I'm retired from my secular job, and I am pushing 70, which a lot of people start really slowing down by then. And they said, what do you do with your whole day now? And I said, well, let me put it this way. I'm never bored.
Yeah.
I'm never bored.
Right.
I mean, there's always something in this study. My Bible's laying open. I tell people I have on my laptop, on the screen of my laptop, there's usually always at least a dozen documents down at the bottom, just waiting for me to bring them up
Yes.
Some of them are
Yes.
current sermons or the next session with you or end times or maybe a special event, Bible conference or something's coming up. So I'm working on some possible outlines for them. And then, maybe half a dozen of them I don't bring up once a week or once a month. They're just kind of more long-term studies I'm working on. And whenever I think of something to add to them, I'll bring it up and add to it. And so, I sit at my desk and I look at all those documents and I look at these mountains of scribbled notes and notebooks and pieces of papers and everything that I'm scribbling out on and just piling on top of each other. And I was looking through a pile of one of them this morning. I think, a lot of them are like from 10 years ago. I haven't hardly looked at them in 10 years. And I think, boy, there's some good material in there. I need to develop that.
Yes.
So, the more you get into the Word of God, the more you look forward to it on a regular basis. The only negative thing for me is I know that, okay, I'm almost 70 and my mind hasn't failed me completely yet, but I know that by 75 or 80, you just know.
Yeah.
And so I think, well, at 70, I should know a lot more about the Bible than I do. So that's kind of embarrassing for me.
I feel the same thing.
And then on top of that, I think, I try to read through the Bible every year. And I read parts of the Bible, and I think, I hardly even remember reading that, much less never preached a sermon or brought a lesson on that. And so you start thinking, how much of the Bible I've never really studied and thought out and spoken about and tried to understand. And it's just kind of, I know the Lord, I know for all eternity, I know during the millennium, I call it 1,000-year Bible study with Christ as our teacher.
Yes.
So I know all that, but in this life,
yeah.
I know I'm going to die with large parts of the Bible still not understood by me. And it partly shows there is no bottom to the depth of Bible knowledge. But it also tells me 50 years of ministry, I should know more. I should know more.
And if you're like me, I'm already counting the days, number the days. And so I look at the road ahead, however long that might, or short that might be. And I'm thinking, what I haven't done. So I begin to think in that same, I haven't done that. Instead of looking at what I've done, I'm looking at what I haven't done and the short road ahead of me. And if we focus on that, that can kind of get us down, but we can't avoid thinking about that.
Yeah, it's just human.
Yeah.
Because, there's something about the idea of me turning 70 in October, because I didn't feel this at 50. I didn't feel it at 60. I didn't feel it at 65. But at 70, you just know the decade of your 70s, you are going to be slowing down mentally and physically, no matter what you do to take care of yourself. And the thought of how much more there is to do, how much more there is to know.
Was that you telling me about Clint Eastwood? I think it was you telling me.
Don't let the old man in.
Don't let the old man in, as much as we can help it to not let the old man in.
He's standing at the door wanting to come in, but don't let him in.
Don't let him in. Age 50 was the one that got to me.
Oh, really?
30, 40, 60, 70, untouched. It was 50 for some reason. I don't know why. But 70 was a breeze. And so I'll pray that 70 doesn't hit you.
Well, I don't want to get too personal, but I'm having a lot of arthritis and things in my hips and spine that's really growing and causing a lot of sciatic pain and a lot of, just everyone who knows me keeps telling me, stand up straight. How come you're walking bent over? So I kind of prided myself. Maybe it was the wrong kind of pride. But at 50 and even 60, some of these gym classes I go to are really tough. I mean, they push you really hard and you come out drenched and just really exhausted. I mean, it's like Navy SEAL in my eyes. I'm sure it's not Navy SEAL.
Right.
But on my level, it's that kind of like for a solid hour, they're trying to push you as hard as they can, boot camp kind of stuff. And a lot of those classes at 50 or 60 years old, the others were, about half my age. And they were young mothers or young men, young fathers and things. But you could tell they were like high school and college athletes. And now maybe they're in their 30s or something, but they're able to just, and they'd be kind of amazed that I was keeping up with them, and that I could push myself that hard. And so I really didn't notice it. But now at almost 70, those same kind of classes, I have to really cut back. Some moves I can't do because of my back and arthritis and things, and I know it's going to stir it all up. I'm moving a bit slower. My endurance is not as much, and so for me, I know it's 70 because I didn't see it much in my. I really felt like at 50, I may have been in the best shape of my life because I had just been doing that for 10 or 15 years already, and just really in pretty good shape, trying to eat right and exercise and all that. But at 70, I'm not able to do as much, but I'm still kind of eating the same. So my, weight's creeping up and my clothes aren't fitting as good or anything. You think, so you're feeling more sedentary, and I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
I like to stay active mentally and physically. So our churches and my brother's taking all the kids, his Sunday school class and a couple of Sunday school classes from about teenage on down. He's taking them for like a 3-mile hike up in the foothills, but it has pretty steep elevation parts of it. And so my wife and I are going to go, and my wife says, well, the first 2/3 of it is not real steep. The last third is quite steep. And she says, I may not be able to do that part. So I'm already wondering in my mind, am I going to be able to do that last part? And I'm determined to. But, it'd be one of those things where, am I going to have to admit to myself that this is in my past? It's no longer part of my present. So,
and, in case our listeners are wondering, well, where are we going with all this and how does this tie in? It ties in every way. We're talking mental, spiritual, and physical as the elect people of God. And our mission and purpose in life is to hold the truth, share the truth, be the truth. And how can we if we're not responsible in all these areas? And so that it very much fits into us being God's people. Of course, our environment, things are falling apart. We've got to be alert. We've got to be sharp. We've got to encourage one another, be encouraged and be the encourager. All of this plays into our overall health.
Well, and it goes back to what we've discussed in the past about one of the purposes of the Sabbath day. Is that, they had crops to take care of. They had wood to chop. They had animals to feed. They had food to cook. They had a house to take care of. They had kids to take care of. God says, in spite of all that, I want you to take one day off. And, so you could say, well, they're just being lazy one day a week. But that time of rest on the Sabbath day provided such a great benefit to them of time with their family, time with the Word of God, time in prayer, time in reflection, time in renewing their body and mind for the week ahead. And it made them better overall. By taking that day off.
Rejuvenated them for Monday.
Rejuvenated them.
Well, actually for Sunday.
And it provided a witness, didn't it,
Yes.
to the people around them?
Yeah.
How come we are working 7 days a week and they take one whole day out of 7? I mean, that's a pretty high percentage.
Mhm.
It's what, 15% or something of their week. They rest, and yet they're better off. They're healthier. They're more productive. They get more done than we do. And that's 15% less time they're spending doing what we're doing.
Mhm.
And yet they're more than 15% ahead of us.
Yeah.
And so it's a witness
Mhm.
that God partly designed the Sabbath to show that I will bless you if you put away the daily things of life one day a week and focus on longer range things, the things of God, the things of eternity, the things of your futures, that family's future,
Mhm.
the things of your mental health, physical health. Just time to meditate is part of the purpose of the Sabbath. And we don't, the New Testament talks about the value of meditation. I don't think we stress it enough to our people, the value of meditation time.
Mhm.
And that's in that state. And I'm not even talking about prayer. Prayer might be considered part of meditation. I'm talking about just sitting still and listening for the voice of God.
Mhm.
And unfortunately now, time that might be given to meditation, which is of great value, is now we grab our smartphone. Okay, it gives me 5 minutes to check the latest baseball scores or
Mhm.
something, or
Yeah.
the latest news, or
Yeah.
listen to a song, or whatever I want to do with, send a text or look on Facebook. So now we're filling our meditation time up with busy little, almost insignificant stuff that is replacing what God wanted for that time. And
Yeah. So
not
many
just
other
to feel-
voices, a
Yeah.
lot of other voices.
Other voices are calling
Yeah.
for attention all the time. And yet that still small voice, which is the voice of meditation time,
Mhm.
is being crowded out.
Mhm.
So it fits in very well with this idea of a place, whether it be within your family, your home on the Sabbath day, or in Jerusalem at the temple on the holy feast days, a time of reflection, of rejoicing, of thinking about God, of putting Him first, of this idea of being part of something larger than yourself,
Mhm.
which is your family and your nation.
Mhm.
All of that is just it produces something better in us.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's what God is trying to design Israel as, something better, not in a sense of boasting, but so that it might cause the other nations to become jealous
Mhm.
and curious. We want to know more about your God
Mhm.
because you're traveling to Jerusalem. You're taking a couple of weeks, few times a year out of your busy schedule.
Mhm.
You're setting aside one day a week for your family instead of out working. And yet you're more blessed than we are. You're better off than we are. So it must be your God. We want to know more about Him. So a lot of this is designed as an outreach witness to the nations surrounding them.
Mhm.
So it's not just for their benefit, it's for the benefit of others becoming desirous of why are you better off in spite of putting forth less effort.
Well, and then it got more extreme. Every 7 years, they would take the whole year off.
Yeah,
And then every 50 years, they would reset the entire economy. And so it just got more radical.
You forgive debts. That's what chapter 15 goes into. Debts were canceled every 7 years. Slaves released. Land goes back to the original owners every 50 years, the Jubilee. And all these reset, which is really what they're intended to be, is like, I want to have this ongoing reset every 7 years or every 7 Sabbath years. So the Jubilee year. I want to reset things so that you're coming back to your beginnings. You're kind of we might say rebooting yourself,
Right. Yeah.
as a nation.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the design. That's chapter 15. So this idea of a place, chapter 12, this idea of every 7 years, the debts being canceled, all these different laws that are in these chapters. Chapter 15, starting at verse 7, is this generosity to the poor, to have this generous spirit about you, so that you're giving away things, but you still have more than the surrounding nations.
Yeah.
So in the giving away, you have more. That underlying important principle that's taught all the way through the Bible. Cast your bread upon the waters, so they shall return to you not many days.
Yeah.
This idea of the more you give, the more you receive. That's one of my main counseling points to people getting married is you have an attitude toward each other that both of you truly believe that you're getting the better end of the deal. And if both of you truly believes that, then that means each of you is trying to give more than you receive, which makes the marriage stronger, makes each of you happier with each other. It eliminates a lot of major conflicts because each of you is convinced, I've really got the better end of this deal. And that's what God designed in the nation of Israel.
Yeah.
That kind of attitude being developed.
Yeah.
The more I give, the more God is blessing me.
And that's all packed into the word cherish.
Cherish. Exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned prayer.
So it brings that over into the church, doesn't it? Those same principles.
You mentioned prayer, and you also mentioned earlier about the need of the whole giving and receiving dynamics. I think of intercessory prayer. So if I'm going through something and I share that with someone, I'm asking them to pray for me, to intercede for me. Well, in order for them to be effective with God for me, they have to be on top of their spiritual game. In other words, the effectual prayer of a righteous man avails much. So I'm counting on that brother or that sister's own individual righteousness or rapport with God to help me in my situation. So that's how crucial, you were talking earlier, how crucial the individual, their relationship is with God to be able to help the whole, the group, to be in tune with God individually, so as to help others as He intercedes. So this is also intricately woven. He
designed
the individual,
this
the group,
beautiful system into Israel and the church.
It is, yeah.
And I know you found this to be true. The more serious or the more focused I am on intercessory prayer, the more it helps me. It draws me closer to God.
Absolutely.
It draws me closer to that person.
Well, it's humbling. It's very humbling.
Very humbling.
Yeah.
It develops a deeper desire for the good of that person. You truly want God to bless them. You're looking outward, which is very healthy. We are to look inward. The Bible teaches that. But if your total focus is inward, that's often the root cause of depression and mental disease. You're only focused on yourself. But if you're focused on yourself for the purpose of being better able to give yourself to others, then that's healthy.
That's healthy. Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that the more I'm focused on intercessory prayer, the deeper my burdens become for others. The more opportunity I look to help them, especially if in your intercessory prayers, part of it is, Lord, if I'm part of the solution to their need, please let me know how I can do that.
Yeah.
So then you're entering into their situation more personally, which then develops closer bonds because they love you and appreciate you for that, which makes whether it be family or friendships or church setting, makes those bonds deeper.
Yes.
So intercessory prayer kicks off a lot of good things that really portrays what we're trying to get across. Intercessory prayer is giving, but the more I do it, I feel like I'm receiving more than I'm giving.
Yes.
Benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing how that works, huh?
It's totally amazing. Yes.
And you see obviously the most unhealthy marriage relationships, the most unhealthy church relationships is when there is a spirit of wanting to receive more than give.
Yes.
And that it's counterproductive because it's counter to the Bible principle. And anytime you're counter to the Bible principle, it's not going to produce good but harm. So I've been yapping a lot here today, Mike. I'm sure you have other good things you want to add.
Oh, I've enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure our viewers enjoyed it. Just some practical, where the rubber meets the road type of discussion. I'm sure all of our listeners can relate to these things.
Well, what we're really talking about overall is something said in chapter 13 in Deuteronomy at the end of, I'll read all of verse 4. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and hold fast to him. It's really what we're talking about is holding fast to the Lord. And how do we accomplish that? We accomplish it by taking care of yourself personally, contribute then to your family, and contribute to your church. And by doing that, you're holding fast to the Lord because this is the design he set up. So in doing that, you are serving the Lord and obeying him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or as it says down in verse 11 of chapter 13, so all Israel shall hear and fear. I just like that little statement.
Yes.
13:11, hear and fear. So if we're hearing properly, it produces godly fear. And hearing, of course, as we said many times in the Shema, hearing means hearing with the attitude of following or obeying what I hear.
Yeah.
So it's hearing in a humble frame of mind, hearing for the purpose of putting into practice.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We separate hearing and practicing.
Yeah.
But the Bible doesn't.
Yeah.
The Bible teaches hearing is just one step of then practicing. Well, let me see. I was hoping to get through chapter 16. We did mention 15 about the debts being canceled. In chapter 16, he reviews the feast days, Passover and the Pentecost, the Feast of Weeks, and then the fall feast. So we have this. I might just mention something. We may have brought it up before. These, I like talking about these patterns of numbers. And have you ever connected the candlestick, the lampstand in the tabernacle and temple, was 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and then 1 in the middle. So 7 total. So you had the central one in the middle, and then it branches out into 3 on each side. So 7 total. But that's exactly the same as the way the feast days are set up. 7 total, but there's 3 and then 1 in the middle and then 3. So the spring feast days are 3, the summer is the 1, and then the fall feast days are the other 3. Patterned after, or I shouldn't say pattern after, but a similar pattern to the candlestick. So it's just interesting how these recurring patterns are especially throughout the Old Testament, carried into the New Testament. But for some reason, I'm sure I have, but at our age, you kind of forget. So every thought is like a new thought. I'm sure I brought this up before, probably preached on it, probably taught on it a number of times. But it just reoccurred to me for the 50th time.
Right.
It's brand new. The similar pattern of the candlestick and the holy feast days, 3, 1, and 3. So that gets us through chapter 16, because we're kind of hurrying through parts of Deuteronomy, trying to get to the closing chapters, because especially chapter 32 has a lot to say. So we might even I'm just kind of glancing through a lot of the next chapters of 17 through 26 or so, 27, is a kind of a repetition of a lot of what's in Exodus that we went through. Mm-hmm. So we may skim through those chapters pretty quick and then slow down in the closing chapters of Deuteronomy for a few sessions. And so let me see, today was session 95. So maybe by session 100, maybe 5 more sessions to finish Deuteronomy. That'd be a good round number. And so 100 sessions through the Torah, through the Pentateuch, through the first letter of the Tanakh, Torah. So the writings of Moses, 100 sessions. That'd be a good way to maybe a goal to shoot for. Maybe I'll try to design it that way. 5 more sessions to get through Deuteronomy.
So just pick out key thoughts from the remaining chapters and.
Yeah, maybe just 1 or 2 to get to chapter 32, because chapter 32 is going to take me maybe a few sessions because it's so rich prophetically.
Have you ever, I was just noticing in Deuteronomy 19, laws concerning the cities of refuge. I don't know that I've ever preached on anything relative to the cities of refuge.
No, we mentioned them some, I think, in earlier books, but I don't think we really dwelt on it much at all. So maybe you can. I'll assign that to you.
Okay.
Keep doing all the talking on these sessions.
You don't hear me complaining.
Have some information on the cities of refuge. So May the 15th, session 95, we did Deuteronomy 12 through 16, let's say. And then we'll do 5 more sessions through Deuteronomy. As always, we welcome anyone to request to join us, not just through what we're doing, but if you have a special subject, we're glad to do an interview, a bio of your life, interview like we've done a few times. Or if you have a different subject, completely different subject, that you would like to deal with, we would be glad to do that. Seriously.
Well,
think about doing it.
Just to inform our listeners and viewers, my son Andrew has consented to come on Truth Be Told on May 31st. He has some questions from the book of Isaiah. He's reading through Isaiah.
Don't we all have questions on Isaiah?
Yes, we do. Yes. So he's he's going to lean heavily on Brother Rick to come up with the answers to his questions from the book of Isaiah.
I think I will prefer my elder brother that day.
So what he's going to do is he's going to let us know what questions in particular so that we can kind of brush up on it. And then, so Andrew Maney will be joining us on May 31st, which is it's a Friday. And so the reason I'm mentioning this is hopefully he will open up the floodgates of what Brother Rick and I have been asking for a long time now, is for others to come on and join us. And so maybe Andrew will open up that
we really do get tired of just staring at each other every session.
Not at all. I'm staring at you. I'm staring at the older you and the younger you behind you on the wall.
Yeah, that's my, I think maybe like 2 years old person on the wall. That there's a glare that you can't see too clearly, but I say hi to my 2-year-old self every time I leave my office.
Yes. To be two again.
So seriously consider coming on. And it doesn't even have to be you doing all the presenting. Just say, I'd like us to have a 3-way discussion on this chapter or this subject. And so, it wouldn't be us putting it all on you, but maybe it's a subject that you think would be interesting to the viewers and listeners. Mm-hmm. And we just like to have a 3-person, or if you want to bring someone else, a 4-person, whatever, group discussion on a particular subject. We'd really like to open this up. We're going through the Old Testament, mainly looking for Christ, but dealing with other things. We're enjoying it, but we wouldn't mind a variety of different things.
Yes.
We won't hold our breath, but we will be extremely pleased if we have to start developing a wait list of those who would like to do that.
Wouldn't that be great?
Think we'll ever have to do that?
One could only hope.
Well, thank you all for putting up with us for 95 sessions, and we hope you're getting something out of it. As I often say, even if I hear a sermon that I don't particularly enjoy, if I get one good thought out of it, I'm glad I listened to that sermon.
Absolutely.
Especially if it leads to, another sermon I develop or something that just triggered from one thing they said.
Yes.
And that's good, because much of giving a devotional or preparing a lesson or a sermon is kind of getting that central thought. Even if you're preaching expositorily, you kind of want to have a core thought in mind that you're trying to get across.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're at least doing that for you.
Well, thank you, Brother Rick. I really enjoyed it. Let's stay healthy.
Go eat that bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios that you like.
Yes, with half and half. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.